Mechee, sorry. How you how
It's fine.
you doing? How you doing, love? What you up to?
I'm good. I'm good. I did not come up here to cuss you out. Look, talking about I don't know if I'm. When do I ever talk to you crazy? Come on. So look, I might not agree with you, but I'm always respect you. You know what I'm saying? So,
No,
but
facts,
no,
facts.
I don't even have any disagreement with nothing. You saying about the situation with the lady. I guess I wanted to come up because I just wanted to clarify for some of the people in the chat. Somebody has said that they can't, people like me get on their nerves, because I just want to focus on the police like we don't have black on black crime. So I would just
Mm,
like to make a point about a couple of things, and I want to clarify with some, you know, some depth to what I said. You can only express so much, in a chat.
true.
And so, first of all, I want to say I don't like the term black on black crime. I wish that we would all stop using that. And the reason why is because if you don't call it what it is, then you can't get to the root of the problem. And it's not black on black crime because that means you're equating the crime that we commit to our DNA. So because you're
Mm,
black, this is why you're doing this. When the truth is crime. If we're going to say that, then that should be white on white crime, Asian on
right.
Asian crime, right? So I think that we need to first stop using that term because words are very powerful and nobody else defines their crime in their community by their race. Because if you go to white communities, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, when you're going out to white communities where they're predominantly white or another race, when you're going out there for calls and crimes are being committed, are they not being committed by those white people?
It's true.
Okay.
Proximity. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so I first want to say that. Okay.
I agree with
To the person's comment. The next thing I wanted to say is that um I agree that there is crime in our community. I don't want to get into the depths of why that is, but there's plenty of crime in the inner cities and in the impoverished ghettos. Let's call it that, because it ain't just black communities. The fact is that black people feel those communities more than anybody else. But these are called the inner cities and the impoverished ghettos, right? And so crime does happen there a lot. And so that is one thing. But my remark is that police brutality is another thing. And what I don't like is when we continue to mix the two conversations, right? And
that. I
what I mean by that is that one does not null and void the other. When you are dealing with criminals, criminals act the way criminals act. How do you compare criminals to people who have taken an oath to uphold the law? Those are two different completely situations. You expect criminals to do what they're doing. That's why we call them criminals. You do not expect police to do what they're doing when they abuse their authority, they brutalize, they overstep their bounds, or they
true.
do these things to people because of race, because FBI, you covered a show. And there is a truth to the fact that white supremacist groups and white supremacists are racist against everybody. If you ain't white, they don't like you. If you Mexican, if you Puerto Rican, whatever you are, they hate everybody if you ain't white, right? And they have infiltrated the police force. So you deal with all these dynamics. And so you don't get to say, oh, we commit all this black on black crime. So stop talking about the police. Two are two separate issues. And I just wish people would discuss them in that manner and stop bringing up one to null and void the other. So that is the point that I was making. I would lastly like to say to the people in the chat that claim I get on their nerves because people like me only want to talk about the police. I will have y'all know if we're going to talk about anything with social media, let's talk about the fact that they lie to you in all ways, just like they don't share with you that black people are doing plenty of positive work in the community as well. They hide those things because I actually don't just talk about police brutality. I actually talk about the crime we commit in our community as well. Not only do I talk about it, I
Mm,
actually do something about it. There are organizations that I work with every day with of brothers where we do go to do protests. We do march for the crime in our communities, but nobody is covering that.
that's
Okay.
true.
I know brothers that have sat on the corner waiting to catch people who have hurt women and children. Their name is New Era World, if you would like to look them up. They're in 16 cities. And so we do these things to try and protect our communities. I have watched them catch the black criminal and turn them in. Okay. So these organizations and these brothers, I've watched them save sisters from sex trafficking because the
Mm,
police aren't doing their job. I have watched them stay at an old woman's house because somebody kept riding by, shooting her house up. They spent 3 nights to catch him. They have a street code that says you cannot sell drugs to our women and our children. You can't harm our women, or we will make you publicly enemy number one. So, what I'm saying in all of that is that just because you think, for those of us that speak on police brutality, when these things come up, because that's what they put in the news, and as commentators, we're going to give you our understanding, or even activists, of what's going on. The crazy thing is, when I post the other side of it, y'all don't come watch that. So I would like
mm.
Elaine, or whatever the hell your name is in the chat, to understand you don't even know what you're talking about when you're talking to me. So this is why I came up here to clarify what I was saying. It was too deep to write in some sentences, so I had to get out the chat.
No, shout out to Mechee X, and my moderators, if you could drop her link, you guys. Mechee, I follow you. I enjoy your content. I don't disagree with what you said at all. And you have pointed some things out to me that I've said, and I'm also here to learn, you guys, and this is for everybody to hear. I'm not above correction. I'm not here to be right. I'm here to be accurate. I say it all the time. My goal is to try to educate from the lens of law enforcement to people who don't have that line of experience, to just give what I can to help the problem the best that I can. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, but there's a lot that I have to offer. And there have been things that Mechee has called me out on, and she's explained it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And she's right about the comparisons. I do agree with that. And comparisons in reference to police brutality and then crime happening within the Black community, within inner cities and things of that nature. And I do agree with. I think that calling it black on black crime, I hate even using the word black, to be honest. And I know we use it out of just kind of to make reference or whatever. But to your point, words are so powerful, and so we've gotten so conditioned in even calling ourselves black when we're actually brown, melanated, powerful individuals, right? So it is. It's very divisive at the end of the day. I mean, it's a lot of work. A lot of work needs to be done. But what's the name? If you could send me if you have a link to the website of I always keep forgetting the
It's new era
new
world
era
dot work.
neweraworld.work.
Yes.
I want to share it with everybody, because I will say this one thing that I have noticed, especially within our community, is that when the men get together on a purpose and start getting work done inside the community, we start seeing a change.
Mhm.
And I talk about this group all the time, Dads on Duty, and I think we talked about this before. And Dads on Duty is this nonprofit. I think they're like a nonprofit organization. Retired fathers, got together, Black fathers, and they started going into schools, high schools, and middle schools, and volunteering their time. And they've watched, a lot of decrease in fighting, decrease in, just any type of crime or tardiness, kids skipping. You just saw a decrease in a lot of like deviant behavior that takes place in schools, and their job was to replace involvement of law enforcement within the schools, and it's had a huge impact. And so it's like it does matter, man. Seeing people come together, volunteer. We are going to be responsible for fixing our own community, and I think that's the onus is going to be on us. The government's not going to do it. They're not qualified. No, I don't think they really care or want to invest the money in it. I don't think they see benefit in it. And all of it's going to fall on us to really fix these issues.
Well, it benefits them to not fix our communities.
Correct, correct, correct.
So, and see,
Absolutely.
that's part of why I say we shouldn't call it black on black crime, because if you call it crime, then we
Right.
begin to look at what creates this crime. When you say black on black crime, you've already told me that what creates the crime is your blackness.
It's
If
blackness.
you just call it crime, now we can say, well, why do we have crime? Maybe it's because this community is impoverished. Maybe it's because it's liquor stores on every corner. Maybe it's
Right.
because the people out here are uneducated because we give them a lack of education in the schools. Maybe it's because, their schools have been shut down in the inner city because 150 of them, they done shut off the water, and they spend $250,000 a month on bottled water because it's too much lead. But these kids been washing their hands in this lead all the time. So all of
Right.
these factors take place. And if you call it crime, then you can begin to say to me, well, what causes the crime? If you
Right.
say to me, it's black on black crime, what you're essentially saying is the blackness causes the crime. You never gonna get to the root blaming it on somebody's race.
And this is very true. This is
Oh.
very true. And this is why we got shout out to Brotab. He said he wanna look. He said on Mechee's page right now. I'm glad I came here tonight. Never heard of her till now. Great content. Listen, brother, you done changed his brother's life that quick. Shout out to Brotab. Listen, bro, you got a lot of videos to watch.
No, they gone. Nope. You know how they do
What do you
me?
do over there?
It's only a couple of videos up there, and them about to be gone too. You know how they be playing me. The haters be looking for old videos of me saying something I could get violated, and
God,
so so that you know what? Like I said, I tell my people I don't have a Patreon. I don't have no membership to my channel. You know what I got? I got my own network I pay for, and so if y'all want to come to my backup page, it's called
here we
MX
go.
Network on Roku, Fire TV. Like that's our network, and so it is what it is. If people want to hear the real raw content of telling the truth, they're gonna have to come over there and see it. And that's just what it is because
Yeah.
I get silenced too much on YouTube. So I would tell you, if people looking at my channel now, it's probably about 400 videos missing. But those 400 videos are on my network, not YouTube, but on my network. So
Well, shout out to you, and and thank you for doing the work. A lot of people, again, you said something that was real solid that doesn't get spoken enough. Is that when people are actually doing the real work, real stuff, the media does not cover it. The media
no.
doesn't cover it, man. They don't want to cover anything that's going to remotely go against their narrative of making Black people look like clowns. And so, anytime we're doing something impactful or doing something meaningful, it just seems like they really don't. Especially if it's going against the narrative of violence and things like that. It doesn't get attention like that. And it's sad, it's unfortunate, but I appreciate the work that you're doing and your network as well. Just keeping everything honest. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So, I just got back, so we gotta put something. I know you're running around too.
I know. That's why I'm gonna just be quiet. Look, I could have said something else, but that'll lead to 50 other conversations. But I'm gonna keep it
Yes.
because we gotta have an interview. I'm next week. I'm ready. I'll be back on Monday.
Yeah. All right. All right. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. I appreciate you always, my dear. Thank you for always coming up. You are my. I always say you're my. Well, we dynamic duo. What we gonna call it?
Right, look what they told me in my chat. I told them you was quickly becoming my best friend, Nathan, and my folks was like, I love him. They was like, well, I respect him, but I don't like him.
That's what's up. Well, I appreciate they come over. They give me a little push. I see them in the comments every now and then. They be like, I understand what you're saying, but I still don't like the way. I'm like, all right.
But you know
I
my
get it.
people not no punks, and they know I
Boy,
tell it
what?
like it is. So I would
Woo.
say that if I'm like Nathan cool, they be like, well, wait a minute, Mechee, all right. So maybe I'm missing something.
Let me just, yeah. A couple of them came over from the Brandon Tatum video, and they had some great comments. I think honestly, I think the problem is the policing. The profession has done a lot of damage, right? Let's just be real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Profession has done a lot of damage since the beginning of time. That's a fact. And though there's been growth, there's some departments, and I know this for a fact, 100%, that they don't care. They don't care. They operate like they're their own country. They're their own government within a government, and so a lot needs to change, man. It just is what it is, and the people are the only ones who can do it. But some police departments have set themselves up like dictators. That's a fact, and you can't tell them nothing. And they're tyrannical in nature. They do what they want to do. They answer to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have power, who's trying to give that up? And so, but again, this country has to get back into the place where the people have the power over the government and the government not the power of the people. So
Yeah, and that's why I agree with you on reform, because that's the only way that's going to get rid of some, not
Yes.
all of those things that cause people to come into policing and other roles. I'll say to your audience, because even the person in lane, she was like, "Yeah, I watched your channel. You still a loudmouth." So let me this loudmouth tell y'all real quietly that
And
y'all
save
should go
y'all.
on YouTube, and they should Google they should YouTube the Stanford prison experiment. And the reason they
Mm,
should go look at that, yeah, because I'm loud, but I ain't stupid. I don't know about you, Elaine, because you in the chat. I don't know if you're doing anything for the community. But if you go look up the Stanford Prison Experiment, it will actually give you
yes.
an understanding of why, when people get into the position of policing, I mean, of course, it's based on a correctional facility and locking people up, but it's the same thing of being in a position of power over people,
Power.
how
Yeah.
that affects people, and
Yes.
then how there takes this effect the people that are around them. So, for example, the officer that's
Well, wait,
abusing
wait.
power and he's riding with a rookie, this
Right.
rookie is going to probably take on his ways of
Yes.
abuse more than anything else, and so it's a good experiment to go watch. They actually had to stop it after a couple of days because it became really abusive, but you would be amazed to watch how quickly these participants really act like prisoners when they could have been like, man, get out my face and I could go home. None of them thought they could leave, and they really played into it. And the way the other students took advantage of their power, it says something about the psyche and how people can misuse that, right? So y'all should go watch that.
Let me ask you this real quick, Michi, because my thing is every person was not designed or has the capability, the mental fortitude to actually handle or wield power. It's not for everybody. Everybody shouldn't
Right.
have access to it. Policing is a profession where it's power given away willy nilly. Anybody, your mama can get it. Your crazy uncle, right? Pookie and them can get it if they can write, pass the test, and talk and do a cartwheel. So when I look at the Stanford experiment, you're absolutely correct. It really exposes human nature, right? When you have people who aren't strong enough to wield power, and this is in any dynamic, whether it's just a person with wealth or it's a person who's a doctor, right? It's something about a person who feels like they have authority over someone beneath them. A lot of people on average cannot handle that. So the question would be, and this is one of the things that I think about a lot when I'm coming up with reform policies for policing. In your personal opinion, though, because I have, and maybe we probably should save this for the interview, but I'm just really curious. Power comes with the position.
Yeah.
Is there a way to where you can how do you not give police power? They need power to do their job, but we know power corrupts. So how do you keep a person from being corrupted from the power they need to say do their job?
But power doesn't corrupt everybody. So I think there are some
True.
things that we can definitely do. And I
Mm,
think then after you do certain things, like for example, we both agree that somebody should not be a police officer, or even in a position of any type of power, I feel, until of great power, that they should be at least 25 or older, because psychologically their reasoning is developed, so they're not running on emotions to where they're doing something because somebody that made them upset, or their biases. They're
right.
thinking more rational at that point. They've lived more life. I also think that they should be required college degrees. And one of the reasons why I believe college degrees is because if you spend 4 years on a college campus, you may be sheltered in one kind of a community all your life and only know what you know about races through TV. So let's talk about white people and how they're conditioned, since people think I only talk about black folks. So if white kid is living in the suburbs, they've never really had any interaction with many black people. They watch TV. We already
Right.
can agree all they do is project the negative stuff.
Yeah.
And so they don't know anything about black people. So then you become a police officer and you roll into the ghetto. You only know what you know on TV, and everybody is a thug. All the women is prostitutes, and they all crazy, and they're gonna get you if you don't get them first. And
Right.
so that's what I mean by that. If you go to college, you're going to sit next to people from all walks of life. You might roommate with a black boy for the first time. You're going to see the basketball team, and you're going to get to meet different people from everywhere, and you begin to socialize. Socialization is a big thing that we don't think about in life when we place ourselves and our children in positions to learn how to grow in society. So becoming cultured and traveling, or putting them in a position where they learn more, I think college should be mandatory. You should be 25 25 years old. You should have to have a college degree. Of course, they would have to pay more. And of course, I think that officers just should have simple checks. You know how many officers are on the force and later they'll tell you, oh, they're in these Facebook groups or they put racist stuff on their Facebook page? Like, you could go to get a job as a telemarketer, and if you have a Facebook page, they're asking for your social media. You know what I'm saying? So why y'all ain't even just checking the social medias of these police officers? It's
Mhm.
just simple stuff they don't do. It's a lot of checks and balances after that. So I think once somebody is in a position where you can do the best, you can never have 100% of anything in a system like we have, right? And
Right.
so you can do the best you can do, but then that's where checks and balances come in. You don't just make people police officers and not train them, but also in their training, do you evaluate their mental evaluation? Y'all got to shoot somebody for somebody looks at your mental situation. Like, how
That's
many officers are
true.
on the force who might be bipolar, who might
That's
have all of
true.
these issues, and nobody's ever given them a psychological evaluation? I think y'all should have psychological evaluations before you could be an officer.
Well, we do have that, but it's easy to circumvent around that, right? Like, even after my accident, I had to go and see a therapist. After my shooting, of course, I had to see a therapist. So, but it's ways around that. I mean, people can fake it, right? So, I think, to your point though, they're just, I think there's not enough oversight over policing. I think we can all agree on that.
Yes.
I think it's too much power, not enough oversight. I think that's the problem with government, period. That, again, there is a why don't people want transparency? Because there's shit they doing that they got no business doing, right?
Right.
Because if it's not an issue, then you'd have the doors wide open. Any police department that makes it difficult to be transparent, it's a problem. Like, it's just, there's really no way around it. Like, if you are avoiding transparency, you're an issue, you're part of the problem. We know what it is at this point in this stage in the game. Doors should be wide open in police departments. And so it's just that people want to try and preserve as much power and freedom. They look at freedom as power, which it is, but again, where you cannot see, corruption can form. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to get rid of. And so that
Well,
is
they
the
should be stricter, too. The
I agree.
police should be the type of job that there are certain things that are just not accepted. And if you get fired from one department for misconduct, you shouldn't be able to be
That's it.
hired at another.
Correct.
Those things should stand.
Correct.
And I think those are the type of things that will weed out the bad people.
Agreed.
Also, I want to say too, somebody was saying about the college degrees and you don't need them to be cops. So let me be clear. I know that socializing is one thing, but another reason why I think that police officers should be required to get degrees is because when you go to school to get a degree, a bachelor's degree especially, you have to take a whole lot of classes, which are your main course classes you have to take, where you have to learn psychology, sociology, psychology. So what happens is you also will learn a little bit more about abnormal psych, right? You're going to automatically learn about disorders that people have and how you can kind of deal with those things. So
Identify it.
you're going to learn, like when y'all go to the academy, tell me if I'm wrong, but like, do y'all learn all of the, like, do y'all have constitutional law, substantive law, procedural law? Do y'all take criminal justice one-on-one? Do you have to take psychology? Do you learn these things?
No, no. Well, what happens is the problem is you get a very brief, like, introduction into these things.
Mhm.
One could say you might be exposed to it, but you're not trained in it, and that's a
Mhm.
problem. So there's more emphasis on the physical aspect of policing, as there's not enough training. There's not enough
Right.
education on the law, period. There's no officer in this country can tell me this. I have one of the longest police departments. I went to, we were 6 months in. We did damn near 6 months. There's no other police department that is training. When I started, that was going that long. Cats were in like 2 to 3 months and they were out with a badge and a gun. I didn't even understand the law as strongly as I do now. When I first started, I was
Mhm.
probably 2, 3 years in before I started grasping a better understanding on the law and procedures. We're not taught. right? Like
Right.
that's just
I've
who we
had
are.
officers, I've dealt with officers who know less of the law than me, and I'm not a
Yeah.
police. You know, but
Yep.
I mean, in all fairness, I
Problem.
do have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, but this is my point.
Good point.
You know,
Yeah.
in saying that, let me tell you something I learned in constitutional law, and I can't even, forgive me, it's late, think of the case study, but I learned in constitutional law about the case that says you can't shoot somebody in their back when they fleeing. It was a case with a teenage boy, I think he was 16 or 17 years old.
Mhm.
He was coming from a house where they thought somebody was burglarizing. When they got
That's
there, he
correct.
wasn't in the house, but they saw him hopping over the fence. He was
Right.
running down the alley. They shot him in his back. And
Hmm.
when they caught up with him, they don't know if he was the one in the house, but he had no weapon or nothing, and they killed him. So there was a case law made that says you can't go around just shooting people in their back. So how
Correct.
many officers, if they took constitutional law, would that sink in their mind when they get ready to shoot somebody in their damn back? So this is what I mean, that having that education is going to make them be more accountable for the laws and the rules. They'll have more knowledge, and you will have a lot more knowledge with dealing even with people with mental disorders, because y'all are oftentimes the first ones to show up. But y'all don't know the first thing about what somebody having a psychotic break or having a moment where they're hallucinating. Y'all don't even understand how to deal with that. College would teach you some of that.
I think, and again, that is case law. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, that case law was actually is what's constantly taught in policing, because that actually created the that established the guidelines to shooting a fleeing felon, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so the guidelines is that a person who is not a threat to you, not a danger to you, cannot shoot them in the back. Absolutely not. And so they did establish what the guidelines were, because just because a person is running from you does not mean they are not a threat, but they still have to be able to pose a threat to you, either creating, great bodily harm or death to someone else or to the officers. And that is the only exception in shooting a person in the back. And so what ends up happening and you already know this, that you will have officers that will use that. We've seen it recently with the Jalen Walker situation, where officers can get away with it, right? Granted,
But
innocent
even you said in that one, the way that he kind of turned around, they may have thought that he was going to do something, and they believed he had a gun in the car. So I would even take it back to another case, and I would say Michael Brown. Hands up, shot in the back, didn't have a weapon. You see what I'm saying? Let's even take it back to that one. I didn't even understand how that was allowed to go down even the way it was, because to me that was a clear case of violation of that case law we're talking about. That was a clear one.
Well, you said Mike Brown, that was the one from Ferguson, right?
Yes, where he didn't have no weapon. He walked away from the police car. And he shot him in his back. It was clear he had
See,
no weapon.
see the thing, that the Mike Brown case, that's a long conversation. But I'll
Right,
say
right,
this.
right. We don't gotta go
I,
into
would- I
that.
would say I would say this with that. There is it's a slippery slope when we talk about citizens who are unarmed and then are shot by the police. It's I understand why it happens. I don't agree on every situation as why it happens, but I've been in situations personally where a person did not have a weapon and yet they still posed a threat to me. Now, the issue though is this. I like the Jalen Walker situation because the problem is the officers all believed he was armed, even though he wasn't armed in that moment when they shot him. And they took they they are saying that his movements and the way he turned in front of them gave the impression that he was drawing a weapon. He took a shooting stance, is what they are saying, right? And we know these things still have to be investigated and have to come out in court, so forth and so on. Cool. But that is a perfect, me personally, even this is why I'm so strong about the Breonna Taylor situation, is I'm big on officers identifying. You have to do your best to identify the threat, identify the weapon before you shoot. But what ends up happening in these situations get chaotic is because it's dark. You can't really see, the movements are erratic. you then incorporate the fear and all the issues
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on.
and
You know what I'm saying? And
I
so,
will say that I get that. I mean, officers are put in those positions, and that's why I guess
right,
I said the Michael Brown case, because I think you can bring all of those things up in the Jalen one. And Michael Brown,
right,
it was daylight. He had
true,
already kind of was at
true,
the car talking, junk,
true.
swung on the officer, would have walked away. So he
This
knew.
is
So
true.
I'm just saying, if we're gonna
I
reach for a case law case, I think that we can look at Michael Brown. I think because with Jalen, you can argue all those things you just argued. That's why I said
agree.
Michael Brown.
I
If,
agree.
if
I
we're gonna
agree.
weigh the two cases out, right?
I agree.
So
I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, no, well said. And I think I think a good point, Noel. How about this? Well, the Patrick Leola, I think, is a good example. Though he had the taser, the situation, the issue I have with him, the officer in that case, is that the officer was poorly trained, couldn't do his
Mhm.
job properly. He wasn't able to apprehend a unarmed person who was not actively resisting. He was passively resisting, and after all of that, he felt the need to shoot him in the head. Right, and so there's no justification for that, though the law, there's a way for him to justify it, though. Right, do you get what I'm saying? The law still gives officers
But and
room
that's
to
where the anger
maneuver.
comes from, I think,
I
from
agree.
the black community. Because let me tell you something. This is another reason why I hate comparing black on black crime with the police. Because when we commit crimes, you know what happens to us? We go to jail.
Hmm.
Okay. They come get us and we go into jail. So when
Right.
the police do this stuff, and they have so many ways that even when they are wrong, you can't explain away every situation. Some
They
of
be
them are
pretty
just
good
what
at it.
they are. And
Yeah.
so, and it's some bullshit. They racist, or they're
Sometimes.
undertrained, or they don't care, or they narcissists, or they white
Mhm.
supremacists. Whatever it is, those cases exist, right? And so, and when those things happen, and then they're able to get away with it, it's like, wow, y'all commit crimes and never pay for your crime. That's the frustration. Because when Pookie and Ray Ray is shooting up the hood, when they catch them, Pookie and Ray Ray going to jail for the rest of their life. Let's stop playing. But Officer Whoopty Wham is going to shoot somebody in this prison, in this precinct, and then he gonna go right over to the next precinct, Tamir Rice, and go and get him another job. And when it's clear that he is not equipped to have this job. And so that becomes the frustration. I think when we compare the two, that's
Yeah.
the thing. Stop comparing it, because criminals go to jail. Police officers commit crimes and they're never called the criminals they are.
I think I will agree. I'll give a little pushback and say that the difference, though, is that we're talking about a profession.
Mhm.
So because it's a profession, it's a job, it has to be examined differently. But I will say this,
Crime
though.
is a profession. It's plenty of people's job.
Facts. That's true. That's true.
It's called
I, I,
organized
I think,
crime.
yeah, yeah. You know what happens is what ends up happening is that they officers do have a lot of leeway. They do. I mean, because the job is law enforcing, and then a part of that job is using force and sometimes deadly force. So they have to examine to ensure that the force is justifiably reasonable. To your point, though, there have been cases where officers have abused the force to a point where it was criminal, and then they were able to make excuses to circumvent around punishment. And that is what I agree is also part of the problem. And I also agree with you. And a lot of times it's officers who aren't doing their job properly. They were lazy, sometimes just grossly negligent or flat out criminal. And they have been able to use certain talking points to defend their actions. And I agree with you. That's what a lot of people don't like. I don't like that either. It's one of the issues I have with the Breonna Taylor situation. As we know, that was all fucked up from top to bottom.
Mhm.
And so I have a lot of issues with that. And I still fight people and other officers over that to this day about that case. And it's so funny now that all this stuff is just now starting to come out. And I've been saying how corrupt those officers were, or who or how many officers that are involved behind that, said everything about that was wrong. And so, but one day people are gonna look back at my videos and be like, he was before his time. You know what I mean?
You know
And
what though? That's that dial test syndrome. And
mm,
go watch that study too, y'all. That's that dial test syndrome, right? And so what happens is White is right. They ice is colder, they water is wetter. And so you can't tell us nothing. We gotta wait for Vice. We need Vlad ass. We need the news. We need them folks to say it happened. And once they say it, we will believe it. We need a Jane
right,
Elliott. Because when black people speak, nobody wants to hear us. But let a white folks say this corrupt. Now they like,
right.
we've been saying this. We have a brother named Kendrick. He worked on the case and is brought try to bring
Mm.
all this information for it. Now, don't get me wrong, he kind of cuckoo, so it make it hard for people to listen to him, right? Sometimes. But he's brought evidence and he talked about these officers and how what they did to Breonna, they've been doing to everybody in that town, but nobody wanted to listen. But now that he had recordings, he had proof, he been
Yeah,
screaming in front of the top of his lungs, interviews, going to live places and jumping in people's camera. Nobody wanted to listen to this black man. But now because white media said it. Now we're all like, oh, see? So, that's that dial test syndrome. Y'all go
man.
watch that and find out how you learn to hate yourself or you even know how to count.
Woo, woo. Listen, bring that brother over here. I'll holler at him. Set him
Wow.
up. Bring him up. I'll talk. I'll give him a space at time. I mean,
You,
listen.
he be stressing me out. You go talk to him. He be
But
stressing. That's
I,
what
I,
he stresses me out, Nathan.
when Vox dropped that video about what was that, the Kentucky Police Department, or I can't remember the name of the police, the one with Breonna Taylor, but Louisville, I think Louisville Police Department, and they were interviewing people who had their drugs stolen and money stolen. Now the problem is, the reason why these corrupt officers exist is because drug dealers can't tell on themselves. It's the perfect scheme, right? So as a drug dealer, what are you gonna say? Hey, the officer took,
Yeah,
about, what I
right.
mean, 3 pounds. He took an ounce,
Because even
right?
if you get
What are you gonna
arrested, what you gonna do? Claim more time? It wasn't 2 pounds. It was actually 10 of them,
That's right. That's right.
And
And
I had, 50,000 under the mattress in drug money.
absolutely,
Like they're not gonna say
absolutely,
that. You're right.
absolutely. I had a case one time. I'm gonna say this in closing. It's sad, but it's crazy. I had a case where a drug dealer was shot, and he was in the passenger seat of the car. They were doing their deal inside the car at the gas station, and they robbed him, shot him behind the seat. So the dude, I can't even remember, but the guy was behind him in the passenger seat. He shot through the passenger seat and shot him it hit him in his lower back and then one in his buttocks, right? So when I showed up, he's on the ground, he's just bleeding. He's like, man, they got me. They got me. Now, mind you, this brother, Rolex, clean outfit, shoes. This is back when like people was wearing Jabot jeans and stuff. It was like $200, $300 pair of jeans back then. But anyways, I don't
I
even
had
think
some
they sell
Jabos.
Jabot
I
anymore.
had
Yeah,
one pair.
yeah. I had
That was
no
all I
pair.
could afford.
This was expensive. So he was shot. He was shot twice, and they pushed him out of the car, right? And so he lived. But I'm talking to him, and his story's just not making sense. And I'm like, bro, what happened? Yeah, they got me, man. I said, well, what would they steal? Because I'm seeing you still got your jewelry on, you still got your wallet, you still got the Rolex, you got this, and I'm trying to, what they take from you? Now I can smell the weed on him, and I knew what it was. And eventually he was like, all right, man, listen, officer, man, they got me, bro. I said, what you mean they got me? Man, they got my stuff. I said, what stuff you talking about, man? The stuff, bro. You know what I'm talking about. I said, they got shit like that. Yeah, he didn't want to tell it, and this is before we didn't have cameras back then. There was no cameras yet. And so I just laughed. I'm like, man, I said, bro, what? They robbed you? He said, yeah, man, they got me. He said, bro, I know where them niggas stay at. So let me give you the information. he was like, he was ready because he's like, man, they weren't supposed to rob me. I've only had 2 cases where drug dealers have actually called the police and reported the robber. Like they knew him. Why? Because it was like, this is my homeboy set me up. And what the criminals think that you're not going to tell on me because you're a drug dealer too.
Right.
But nah, some of them brothers be like, nah, hell with the streets, bro.
Just
Hell
like
with
the
streets.
women robbed the men and they
Yes.
set him up. They think they finna get some.
Oh,
They like, well, he thought he was finna get a prostitute.
he
He ain't
thought
gonna
he's
tell
gonna.
him I robbed him for
Yes.
10 G's out his wallet.
Yes. Listen, I've had those too.
They call the police. Yes, they do.
Yeah, and I had a guy. He thought he was gonna get him a little menage a trois, right, at the club. He was throwing all the money. The sisters was like, oh, I'll go home. I'll go with you. Where you going? To this hotel. One took him and finessed him in the bathroom, loving up on
Mhm.
him. And the one in the bedroom, guess what she did? She opened up the hotel door and she walked out, and the little Goonies came in, robbed him, took everything. And he telling me as I'm interviewing him, because they took his wedding ring. Hey, Officer Daley, can you when my wife shows up to pick me up, can you just tell her I got robbed at the gas station? I was like, yeah, I got you, bro. I got you. Wife show, oh my God. Oh, Tyrone, are you okay? I see Tyrone thought he was gonna get two women that he met at the club, and they robbed his ass in the hotel, man. Just let you know, you need to go and get checked. Dirty Dick Tyrone out here get you hemmed up out here in these streets. Why? Because again, at the end of the day, I can't respect no man who does that. You know what I mean? I'm gonna tell it real. You did all that. Now
Yeah.
you calling your wife to come save you after you put yourself in that type of man. Please. But anyways, I got stories for days. But yeah, I've seen it all. I've seen women who set guys up. Shout out to Cardi B. They've been shot. They've been shot. They've been shot. And in the midst of doing the lick, doing that same thing, trying to set men up, and dude got a gun and they get in a shootout, and the stripper gets caught in the crossfire, right? She gets shot.
Mhm.
And I'm interviewing her at the hospital, and I'm looking at her and just thinking like, you're an idiot. So it's hard out
Yeah.
here for some of these, but it's nasty out here, Michi. It's nasty.
I can imagine y'all as an officer, you done had some days where you just go home like today was a crazy ass day
Man,
with some funny shit.
funny, crazy. But to your point and what the gentleman said earlier who was up here, it will make you harden, it will desensitize you, and it does. You see so much negativity, man, especially where I worked at. Every day, Michi, I was drawing my gun on people. Every single day, I was almost once a week. I was in a foot chase. It just, and it can desensitize you, and it takes you away from that protect and loving serve, hand out cupcakes and Skittles. So when people say that, it's like it's not that easy. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, though.
Well, I would like to give you another comparison. I completely understand that. And I want you to know that for those of us in the Black community that are not police officers, I want you to know that the ghetto and the things we go through, it beat us down. And so this is why
It's
some
true.
of us are so hard, and this is why some of our kids are the way they are, and this is why a lot of our women are the way they are, because you're right, day after day dealing with the same stuff. Our communities are like war zones, and
Yeah,
you deal with the stuff you deal with, and you see the stuff you see. It hardens our people too. So I would
true.
just take all of the people who want to say, well, why Black women like this, or why Black men like this, or look at them disrespectful kids. Like, our community has become hardened in the same way. At least when
True.
you clocked out, you could get off and go home. When you live in the turmoil, you begin to function in dysfunction. That becomes your normal. And
That's
so, just keep that in mind. That's why a lot of people get angry with you
true.
sometimes, but they
Facts.
just hardened, they go through a
Yeah.
lot. So remember that and don't take it personal when they be trying to
No,
cuss you out and
no,
everything.
I know, I know. It's all love. At the end of the day, it'd be like family fighting. But at the end of the day, it's like we just want to see our community better, treated better, respected, and even respecting one another. At the end of the day, but it is hard. It is hard. I'm grateful for the people who want to do the work, whether in uniform or out of the uniform. But
Mhm.
it's something that we all have to contribute, right? No, everybody has to contribute in some way, some form or fashion, even if it's even if it's stop committing crime in your neighborhood, right? Like contribute somehow, but do it somewhere else. I mean, there's plenty of. But hey, let me not say
Look
that.
at you, look at you.
They know the
Everybody
crime.
go, Jason said, go to the white neighborhood.
Ah!
Y'all heard it here first.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Stop robbing your people. So, Michi, thank you so much, love, for coming by. It's always fun having you around. So,
Absolutely. So thank you for having me up. And I just want to let Miss Alay know in the chat. She seemed to be really bothered by me, but I just want her to get used to me because, baby girl, I'm not going nowhere. Whenever
ain't going
Nathan go
nowhere,
live, I'm
y'all.
gonna be here. In a minute, I'm gonna ask
Yeah.
for a wrench. So you just to get used to it, girl. I'm not
Hey,
going nowhere. Okay, I'm gonna be over here
ah,
every live. How about that? Cause
Michi
I
ain't going nowhere,
even when
y'all.
I'm on my flight, cause I pay for Wi-Fi on the flight, so I'm gonna be even if I'm on a plane, girl, I'm gonna be here. So you might as well just get used to it. You know, we could do this. We do this thing in the hood, Elaine. It's like we ain't friends, but we ain't gotta be. So you know, when you see me and I
Facts.
see you, just don't say nothing to me, sis. But I ain't going nowhere. So I'm
Yeah,
sorry
meet
you
you
don't
here.
like me, but you're gonna see me on this channel all the time too. What?
Meet you here to stay, y'all. Y'all gotta love it, y'all. Meet you here to stay. She like that stepchild that show up at the house you can't get rid of. Be here, be here.
But anyway, thank you, Nathan. You have a good night,
You
everybody in
too,
this
love.
chat. I will talk to you later.
All right, my dear. Have a good night.
All right, good night.
All right. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Me just ain't going nowhere. She here to stay, y'all. Y'all gotta learn to love her. You gotta learn to love her. You gotta learn to love her. I be saying me and Michi, we two sides of the same coin, right?